Close your eyes. The past is about to speak. When you think of the Olympian gods, you probably imagine radiant beings in pristine white robes, lounging on soft clouds and gazing down at the world with serene, all-knowing wisdom. You might picture grand marble halls echoing with the music of lyres, a place of perfect beauty and eternal peace. That, however, is the travel brochure version, carefully curated for mortal consumption. The reality is something far more complicated, and frankly, far more stressful. Imagine the most intense, high-stakes corporate office, blended with the endless drama of a family holiday dinner that never, ever ends, and you're getting closer. You probably wouldn't last a day with the pressure, the gossip, and the sheer weight of all that immortal ego. It's always so wonderful to see where everyone is listening from tonight. If you feel like it, drop your city or country and the local time in the comments. It's a lovely way for us to feel connected on this little journey. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together, where history whispers you to sleep. The journey begins not with a climb, but with a gentle, inexorable pull upwards. You feel yourself lifting away from the solid, familiar earth, rising through the cool layers of the evening air. The world below shrinks, its sharp edges softening into a patchwork of dark forests and sleeping fields. The sounds of the mortal world, the distant bark of a dog, the rustle of leaves, fade into a profound silence, replaced by a low, resonant hum that seems to vibrate in your very bones. It is the sound of pure, ancient power. You ascend through a sea of clouds, thick and gray at first, then thinning into wisps of silver and pearlescent white. The air grows cold, sharp with the scent of ozone, like the clean, electric smell after a thunderstorm. It's a sterile, powerful scent, unlike anything on Earth. You reach out a hand, and the mist you touch is no longer intangible vapor. It feels cool, dense, and strangely supportive, coalescing under your feet to form a soft, shimmering pathway. You are walking on clouds, but they are not the fluffy, weightless things of dreams. They feel solid, like walking on packed snow, each step leaving a faint, glowing impression that slowly fades behind you. Below, the highest peaks of the human world are now just jagged teeth jutting from a blanket of white. But you are still rising. You pass the threshold where the blue of the sky deepens into the velvety black of the cosmos, where stars burn with a cold, clear light, unhindered by atmosphere. And there, suspended in the void, is your destination, Olympus. It is not a single mountain peak, as the stories sometimes suggest. That was merely the anchor, the earthly point of contact. This is a place beyond place, a floating island of impossible geology. Great, luminous halls are carved not from marble, but from something that looks like solidified light, pulsing with a faint, internal glow. Waterfalls of shimmering, silvery liquid cascade down cliffs of polished obsidian, not with a roar, but with a sound like 1,000 tiny bells, a gentle, continuous chime that hangs in the air. You take a tentative step from your cloud path onto a vast, open courtyard. The ground beneath you feels like warm stone, smooth and seamless. As your eyes adjust, you see them, the gods. They are not assembled in some grand, static tableau. They are scattered in small groups, moving with a grace that is both fluid and unnervous. But as you watch, you begin to notice the details that the epic poems leave out. This is no serene paradise. It's a place of tension. You see a goddess with eyes the color of a stormy sea, her hand resting on the arm of a handsome, sun-bright god. It looks like a tender gesture, but you see her fingers tighten just a little too much, her jaw set in a line of quiet warning. He doesn't flinch, but a flicker of annoyance crosses his perfect face before he smooths it back into a mask of placid charm. Over by a fountain that flows with a golden, honey-thick liquid, two formidable gods are locked in a silent standoff, their immense power crackling in the air between them like unseen lightning. It's not grand conflict. It's the divine equivalent of two executives arguing over a parking space, but with the potential to level a city. This is the great secret of the immortals. Their endless life has not brought them endless peace. It has only given them more time to cultivate grudges, to nurture rivalries, to grow weary of the same faces and the same eternal arguments. There is no escape, no weekend home to get away from it all. This is it, forever. Scholars have long debated whether the ancient Greeks pictured Olympus as a physical palace on a mountain top, or as a separate, metaphysical realm. Standing here, you feel the truth is somewhere in between. It is a real place, but it operates on principles alien to the mortal world. You notice servants, lesser spirits perhaps, moving silently, offering goblets filled with that golden fluid, nectar, and trays bearing small, luminous cubes that look like solidified moonlight, ambrosia. This is the food of the gods, the source of their immortality. But watching them consume it, you see no pleasure, no savoring of a fine meal. It is purely functional, like refueling a vehicle. They partake of it with a kind of detached necessity, a routine that has been repeated for so many eons it has lost all meaning beyond its core purpose. There is no joy in this sustenance, only the endless, boring necessity of maintaining their divine state. It's the ultimate cosmic meal plan, with only 2 items on the menu forever. You can't help but think of the rich, messy, flavorful stews and breads of the human world with a sudden pang of longing. Here, there are no questionable tavern reviews, no new recipes to try, just the same old ambrosia, day in and day out for eternity. As you stand at the edge of this divine stage, an observer unseen and unheard, you realize that the grandeur of Olympus is just a facade. It is a beautiful, shimmering cage, housing the most powerful and perhaps the most dysfunctional family in the universe. Beneath the veneer of perfection lies a world of simmering resentment, fragile egos, and heartbreaking betrayals. And at the center of it all, on a throne that seems to gather all the light in the realm, sits the king. His gaze is not fixed on the heavens or on the mortal world below. It is fixed on his own court, his own family, with an expression of weary, watchful paranoia. Your gaze is drawn to the center of the hall, to the figure on the massive throne. This is Zeus, the king of the gods, lord of the sky. But the being you see before you is not the benevolent, white-bearded father figure from statues and paintings. There is a tension in his posture, a rigid set to his powerful shoulders that speaks not of comfort, but of constant, weary vigilance. His power is not a comfortable cloak he wears with ease. It is a suit of armor he can never take off, and you can almost feel the chafe of it against his immortal skin. The throne itself is a masterpiece of divine craftsmanship, forged from a dark, unidentifiable metal that seems to drink the light around it, inlaid with constellations that shift and swirl like living things. In his right hand, he holds not a scepter but his thunderbolt. It isn't a grand, blazing weapon at this moment. It is dormant, a twisted rod of solidified lightning that crackles with a low, latent energy. He turns it over and over in his hand, a nervous habit, the divine equivalent of a stressed executive endlessly clicking a pen. His eyes are the most telling. They are not calm or all-seeing. They are restless, constantly scanning the assembled gods, moving from face to face, searching for something. A flicker of dissent, a whispered conspiracy, a look that lingers too long between two of his siblings. The low murmur of conversation that fills the hall seems to falter whenever his gaze passes over a group. The divine chatter momentarily subdued under the weight of his scrutiny. There is no genuine ease here, only the carefully constructed performance of it. You feel the root of this anxiety deep in the history of this place. Zeus wasn't born a king. He seized his crown through violence and revolution. He is the son of Cronus, the Titan who, fearing a prophecy that his own children would supplant him, swallowed each of them whole as they were born. Zeus only survived through a trick, and he grew up in secret to fulfill that very prophecy, leading a 10-year war, the Titanomachy, that shattered the cosmos before he finally deposed his father and freed his siblings. He knows better than anyone that power is not given. It is taken, and what is taken can be taken again. This is the paranoia of the usurper, the fear that someone is always following in your footsteps, planning the same coup you once perfected. His reign is built on a foundation of this deep-seated insecurity. You are reminded of the shocking story of Medes, the goddess of wisdom, his first great love. When a prophecy foretold that she would bear a son destined to overthrow him, Zeus did not simply cast her aside. In a horrifying echo of his own father's actions, he tricked her into turning herself into a fly and swallowed her whole. It was a desperate, brutal act to absorb her wisdom and neutralize the threat. It's a historical tidbit that reveals the raw, unvarnished truth of his character. His obsession with maintaining power overrides everything: love, honor, and reason. There is no line he will not cross to protect his throne. You watch as a young, beautiful nymph, a cupbearer, approaches his throne to refill his goblet with nectar. She moves with a practiced, fearful grace, her eyes fixed on the floor, avoiding his gaze. He barely acknowledges her, his attention already drifting towards a heated, though silent, debate between his son Apollo and his brother Poseidon. He doesn't intervene. He just watches, assesses, calculates. Every interaction is a potential threat. Every alliance a future challenge to his authority. Scholars often debate whether Zeus's many affairs with mortals and goddesses were simply expressions of divine power, or if they were political allegories, representing the way his cult absorbed and dominated smaller, local deities. Seeing him now, you suspect it was both, a blend of insatiable desire and strategic, almost colonial expansion of his influence. He is utterly alone. His siblings, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, Hestia, he freed them from their father's stomach, but the act created a debt, not a bond. He is their king, but also their jailer in this gilded cage. His children, a sprawling, chaotic pantheon of ambitious gods, are not a source of fatherly pride but a collection of potential rivals. He is less a father of the year and more a hostile takeover artist who now has to manage a board of directors who all secretly want his job. There are no trust falls on Olympus, no team-building exercises to foster a sense of unity. There is only the cold calculus of power. A low rumble of thunder echoes in the distance, a sound that has no natural source in this place beyond the sky. It is the sound of his mood, an involuntary broadcast of his internal state. A moment of irritation, a spike of suspicion, and the very air around you vibrates with his displeasure. You realize that to live here, under his rule, is to be constantly attuned to this atmospheric pressure, to live your eternal life walking on eggshells, lest you inadvertently trigger a storm. The magnificent halls of Olympus suddenly feel less like a palace and more like a beautifully appointed prison, run by a warden who is as much a prisoner of his own fear as any of his subjects. His strength isn't in the thunderbolt he holds, but in the pervasive, suffocating fear he projects. And as his gaze sweeps the room again, you understand that this king's greatest enemy is not some external monster or rival god, but the gnawing, unshakable certainty that his own history is destined to repeat itself. From the grand, imposing throne of the king, your attention is pulled to a smaller, yet no less magnificent, seat beside it. Here sits Hera, queen of the gods, his sister and his wife. If Zeus's power is broadcast through overt displays and restless surveillance, hers is a different kind of force entirely. It is a still, cold fire, a presence that commands attention without demanding it. Her beauty is regal, severe, and etched with a profound, bone-deep weariness. She holds a single, perfect pomegranate in her lap, its dark red seeds like clustered jewels, a symbol of her domain over marriage and fidelity, a domain she must defend with a ferocity born of constant, soul-crushing betrayal. Her famous jealousy is not the petty, shrill anger often depicted in the simpler myths. As you feel the weight of her presence, you understand it as a vast, bottomless well of righteous fury. It is the grief of a queen whose kingdom is constantly being undermined, the pain of a wife whose vows are treated as mere suggestion. Every one of Zeus's affairs is not just a personal slight. It is a direct assault on her authority, her honor, and the very concept of the divine order she is supposed to represent. Her anger is not a flaw. It is the only rational response to an intolerable, eternal situation. You watch her now, observing the same scene as her husband, but her focus is different. She is not scanning for political threats. She is tracking the subtle currents of infidelity. Her gaze falls upon the young nymph who just refilled Zeus's goblet. And though the girl is already retreating, Hera's eyes follow her with a chilling, analytical coldness. There is no overt threat in her look, but the temperature around her seems to drop by several degrees. It's a silent promise of future retribution, a name and a face filed away for later. To be a woman on Olympus, or even a mortal woman who catches Zeus's eye, is to live under the constant, terrifying shadow of Hera's potential wrath. You are reminded of the story of Leto, the mother of Apollo and Artemis. When Hera discovered Leto was pregnant with Zeus's children, she didn't just confront Zeus, an act of futility she had learned long ago. Instead, she systematically, cruelly made Leto's life a living hell. She decreed that no land under the sun could offer Leto a place to give birth. She sent the monstrous serpent Python to hunt her across the earth. It was a display of vindictive, strategic cruelty designed not only to punish the individual, but to serve as a brutal warning to all others. This wasn't a simple fit of pique. It was a calculated campaign of terror. The academic debate about whether the myths reflect the societal norms of the ancient Greeks feels vividly real in her presence. Hera's position mirrors that of a high-born Greek wife, bound to a powerful husband whose infidelities were often culturally tolerated, if not expected. Her power was confined to the domestic sphere, the oikos, but within that sphere, it was absolute. Hera's rage is the cosmic amplification of the fury of every woman trapped in a system that celebrated her husband's freedom while demanding her absolute fidelity. She is the divine patron of a very specific and very human form of female rage. You see a flicker of movement, and Hermes, the messenger god, approaches her throne. He bows low, whispering something to her, his expression a careful blend of respect and casual indifference. She listens, her face impassive, but you see a muscle twitch in her jaw. She gives a slight, almost imperceptible nod, and Hermes zips away as quickly as he arrived. You have no idea what was said, but the feeling of a new scheme being set in motion is palpable. Perhaps she has found a new target for her anger, or a new way to subtly thwart one of Zeus's plans. Her existence is a constant, draining game of chess against her own husband, played out across the mortal and divine realms. It's a truly miserable way to spend eternity. There is no modern concept of a no-fault divorce on Olympus. Marriage among the high gods is a political institution, a binding contract of power. To leave would be to abdicate her throne, to surrender her status, to lose. And Hera will not lose. So she stays and she fights, and she channels her immense power not into creating, but into policing and punishing. It has made her bitter, yes, but you feel a powerful, empathetic pull towards her. Her rage is a shield, forged in the fires of a million betrayals. Without it, the grief would surely consume her. A quirky, shocking fact comes to mind. Some early cults may have worshipped Hera as a preeminent, independent goddess long before she was syncretized into the Olympian pantheon as Zeus's wife. In these older versions, she was a powerful earth or sky goddess in her own right. Seeing her now, you can feel the ghost of that older, more autonomous deity, a queen who once ruled alone, now trapped in a partnership that has diminished her, even as it cemented her power. Her gaze finally turns toward Zeus. For a brief moment, their eyes meet. There is no love there, not anymore. There is only a long and complicated history of shared trauma, of battles won together against external threats, and battles fought bitterly against each other. It is the look of two people who know each other so completely that there are no secrets left, only grievances, Then she looks away, her attention returning to the pomegranate in her lap, her fingers tracing the rough skin of the fruit. She is a queen defined by her husband's failures, a goddess of fidelity forever married to an adulterer. And in the silent, simmering hall of Olympus, her cold, contained fury is one of the most powerful and most tragic forces in the cosmos. Your attention shifts, pulled by a new sensation. The air in the grand hall suddenly feels heavy, humid, and carries the faint, briny scent of a distant sea. This change announces the presence of Poseidon, god of the seas, earth shaker and brother to Zeus. He is not lounging on a throne, but standing near one of the great open archways, staring out into the star-dusted void, as if searching for his own liquid kingdom far below. He is a formidable figure, broad and bearded like his brother, but where Zeus's power is sharp and electric, Poseidon's is a deep, churning, relentless force. He holds a trident, the three-pronged spear that is his emblem, but he leans on it wearily, like a traveler resting on his staff. The metal of the trident seems to weep, a thin film of salt water constantly beating on its surface and dripping silently onto the floor, where it vanishes with a soft hiss. His mood is a palpable thing, a low-pressure system settling over this corner of the hall. You feel it in your chest, a weight, a sense of impending turbulence. The gods nearby give him a wide berth, a silent acknowledgement of his notoriously volatile temperament. To understand Poseidon, you must understand the sea itself. It is not just a body of water, it is a realm of contradictions. It can be placid and glass smooth one moment, a raging, chaotic tempest the next. It is deep and mysterious, hiding unimaginable treasures and terrifying monsters in its abyss. This is Poseidon's personality made manifest. His moods are the tides, his anger the hurricane, his rare moments of calm the sun-drenched lagoon. He is the embodiment of raw, untamable natural power, and unlike Zeus, he seems to have little interest in the subtle political machinations of the court. His power is more elemental, more direct. You recall the myth of his contest with Athena for the patronage of Athens, while Athena offered the city the olive tree, a symbol of peace, wisdom, and prosperity. Poseidon struck the Acropolis with his trident and produced a saltwater spring. His gift was dramatic, a show of immense power but ultimately useless to the people. It was a classic Poseidon move, all spectacle, no forethought. He didn't offer something practical, he offered a demonstration of his might. When the Athenians chose Athena's gift, his rage was immense. He cursed the city with a perpetual water shortage, a petty, vindictive act that revealed his deep-seated insecurity. He is second-born of the three brothers, ruling the sea while his younger brother, Zeus, rules the sky. You sense the eternal sibling rivalry, the bitterness of being a king, but not the king. His control over his domain is absolute, but you sense it is also a burden. He doesn't just rule the sea, he is the sea. He feels every storm, every tremor of the seabed, every creature that dies in its depths. His consciousness is tied to a kingdom that is never, ever still. This constant flux is reflected in his interactions. You watch as a minor sea deity, a nereid perhaps, with hair like seaweed and skin the color of pale sea foam, approaches him with some report. He listens for a moment, his expression unreadable, then dismisses her with an impatient wave of his hand. His response is not cruel, just abrupt and dismissive, the way a person might brush away an annoying fly. He is too preoccupied with the vast, chaotic symphony of his own realm to be bothered with the small details. Historians have noted that Poseidon was also worshipped as the earth shaker, the god of earthquakes. This might seem odd for a sea god, but the ancient Greeks, a seafaring people living in a geologically active region, understood the deep, terrifying connection between the two. Earthquakes often triggered tsunamis. The rumbling of the earth and the rage of the sea were two sides of the same destructive coin. In his restless energy, you feel the tectonic plates shifting, the deep, groaning tension of the planet's crust. He is a god of instability, of the ground literally shifting beneath your feet. It's no wonder the other gods are wary of him. No one wants to be near someone whose bad mood could level a city block, or in this case, an entire coastline. You're reminded of a truly weird and shocking tidbit about his worship. Poseidon was also strongly associated with horses. It seems like a strange pairing, a sea god and a terrestrial animal. One theory suggests that the crashing waves on the shore were poetically compared to the thundering hooves of charging stallions, their white caps like flowing manes. He was believed to have created the first horse, and the image of him riding a chariot pulled by hippocamps, creatures with the front half of a horse and the tail of a fish, is a perfect, surreal illustration of his dual nature. He is a god who bridges the gap between the solid land and the unknowable deep, and the connection is often violent and unpredictable. Staring out into the cosmos, he shifts his weight, and a deep, low groan echoes through the hall, not from his mouth, but from the very structure of Olympus itself. It's a tremor, a fleeting earthquake in this realm beyond Earth. A few goblets rattle on a nearby table. A nervous silence descends for a moment before the ambient chatter cautiously resumes. Zeus shoots a warning glance in his brother's direction, the silent parental look that says, "Take it outside." Poseidon ignores him, lost in his own turbulent thoughts. He is a god of immense power but little subtlety, a being of deep passions but shallow patience. You feel a strange sort of sympathy for him. He is a force of nature crammed into a humanoid form, forever wrestling with an inner chaos that mirrors the kingdom he rules. While Zeus is tormented by the future and the potential loss of his power, Poseidon is a captive of the present, constantly buffeted by the storm of his own emotions. He is the eternal, grumpy uncle at the family gathering, the one everyone loves from a distance, but is secretly afraid to sit next to at dinner. Your journey takes a sudden, sharp turn downwards. The luminous halls and starry skies of Olympus dissolve, and you find yourself descending into a profound and palpable darkness. The air grows cool and still, thick with the scent of damp earth, stone, and something ancient and dry, like old paper or withered flowers. The gentle chiming and resonant hum of the upper world are gone, replaced by an immense, pressing silence. It is not an empty silence, but one filled with the weight of memory, of endings, of a million whispered goodbyes. You are not falling, but being gently guided, as if on a slow, invisible river, flowing into the heart of the earth. You pass through a great gate of wrought iron, wreathed in shadows that seem to writhe and cling to you like cold mist. The famous three-headed dog, Cerberus, is there, but he is not the slavering monster of the heroic tales. He lies sleeping, his three great heads twitching in some canine dream, a low rumble of a snore echoing from his massive chests. He seems less a terrifying guardian and more an ancient, weary watchdog, long accustomed to the quiet procession of new arrivals. This is the underworld, the realm of Hades, and as your eyes adjust to the gloom, you see that it is not a place of fire and torment, not the hell of later traditions. It is a vast, gray, melancholy kingdom. The landscape is a monochrome echo of the world above. Shadowy plains, groves of black poplar trees with rustling, paper-thin leaves, and a slow, dark river, the Styx, that winds its way through it all, its surface as smooth and reflective as polished obsidian. And sitting on a throne of this same black stone in a vast, echoing cavern of a palace is the king of this realm. Hades is the third brother, the one who drew the short straw. When the universe was divided, Zeus took the sky, Poseidon took the sea, and Hades was given the dominion of everything beneath the earth, the dead. He is often painted as a villain, a grim reaper, a demonic figure who steals life. But as you observe him, you see nothing of the sort. You see an administrator, a meticulous, overburdened, and deeply solitary ruler. His face is stern and pale, but not cruel. It is the face of a being who has accepted his grim duty and performs it with a quiet, solemn dignity. He is not surrounded by a court of scheming sycophants like Zeus. He is surrounded by paperwork. Well, not paper, but scrolls, tablets, and ledgers of dark stone that seem to float in the air around him. He pores over them, his long fingers tracing lists of names, his brow furrowed in concentration. He is the ultimate bureaucrat, managing the endless, orderly influx of the dead. He is not responsible for their deaths. He is simply the one who has to file them away correctly. The sheer scale of his task is overwhelming. Every mortal who has ever lived ends up here. He must ensure they are properly processed, judged, and assigned to their final place, whether it be the drab, endless twilight of the asphodel meadows for the unremarkable majority, the shadowy pits of Tartarus for the truly wicked, or the rare, blissful fields of Elysium for the heroic and virtuous. His kingdom is the only one in the cosmos that is constantly, relentlessly growing. There's a certain grim humor in it. He's the only one of the brothers whose realm has guaranteed infinite expansion. No wonder he seems so tired. There are no holidays, no sick days, when you're managing the entire deceased population of the world. You see his queen, Persephone, sitting on a smaller throne beside him. For half the year she is here, bringing a touch of life to this place of shades. A small, ghostly garden of phosphorescent flowers grows around her feet, a stark contrast to the surrounding gloom. There is a quiet, comfortable understanding between them. Theirs was a story that began with a brutal abduction, a fact that historians and mythologists still grapple with. Was it a violent crime or a symbolic representation of a seasonal cycle? But here, now, in the quiet of their hall, you see not a captor and his victim, but a partnership. He seems to defer to her judgment on certain matters, and her presence appears to be the only thing that alleviates his profound, eternal solitude. A group of shades, the wispy, transparent forms of the newly dead, are led before the thrones by Hermes, who, in his role as a guide for souls, is one of the few gods who travels freely between the realms. Hades looks up from his ledgers, his gaze passing over the new arrivals. His expression is not one of judgment, but of weary acceptance. He is not here to gloat or to menace. He is a functionary, performing a necessary cosmic role. He is less a king and more the eternally overworked manager of the universe's largest and most permanent archive. You can only imagine his internal monologue. Another batch. Did they fill out the forms correctly? Of course not. One of the most surprising facts about Hades is how rarely he features in myths outside of his own realm. He almost never travels to Olympus and plays little part in the endless dramas of the other gods. He is not an antagonist in their stories. He's more like a recluse, the brother who moved far away and doesn't come home for the holidays because he's just too busy with work. The most famous story involving him, the abduction of Persephone, was driven by a desperate loneliness, a desire for companionship in his vast, silent kingdom. He is not evil, he is isolated. As you stand in the quiet majesty of his dark palace, you realize the injustice of his reputation. He is feared because he rules over what mortals fear most, death and the unknown. But he is not the cause of it. He is merely the keeper of the end. He maintains the balance, prevents the dead from troubling the living, and enforces the one rule that even Zeus must respect. That which is dead must remain dead. His power is not in a thunderbolt or a trident, but in the unshakable, absolute finality of his domain. He is the god of consequences, the quiet, somber bookkeeper at the end of every story. And in his tireless, thankless, and lonely work, you find a strange and unexpected dignity. Leaving the silent, orderly darkness of the underworld, you find yourself rising back into the light, but not to the celestial glow of Olympus. You emerge into the world of mortals, under a sun that feels harsh and brazen, beating down from a pale, cloudless sky. The air is dry and dusty, carrying the scent of cracked earth and withered plants. You stand in the middle of a vast, fallow field. The soil is gray and crumbly. The stalks of last season's wheat are brittle and bleached, breaking under your unseen step with a sound like snapping bones. A profound sense of desolation hangs over the landscape. This is the world mourning, and you have arrived in the midst of its grief. Walking at the edge of this barren field is a lone figure. It is Demeter, goddess of the harvest, grain, and the fertility of the earth. But there is no life-giving radiance about her now. She is cloaked in drab, dark robes, her form stooped not with age, but with a sorrow so immense it seems to have a physical weight. Her face, usually a picture of matronly warmth, is a mask of anguish. Her eyes red-rimmed and hollow as she scans the empty horizon, searching, always searching. This is the earth suffering under the weight of a mother's grief. You are witnessing the raw, personal pain of a goddess made manifest in the world. Her beloved daughter, Persephone, has been taken, abducted by Hades and carried down to the underworld. In her despair, Demeter has forsaken her divine duties. The crops will not grow, The rains will not fall. The seasons are frozen in a state of perpetual decay until her daughter is returned. It is an act of divine protest, a hunger strike on a global scale. The gods on Olympus can bicker and scheme, but here, you feel the direct, devastating consequence of their actions on the mortal world. You feel her pain as a physical sensation, a cold, empty ache in your own chest. It is a pain that transcends divinity. It is the universal, primal agony of a parent who has lost a child. For all their power, the gods are not immune to the most fundamental human emotions. In Demeter, this emotion is not just an internal feeling. It is a world-altering force. She is not just sad. Her sadness has blighted the entire planet. This is a powerful, shocking reminder that the gods' personal lives are never truly personal. Their joys can bring prosperity, and their sorrows can bring famine. You follow her as she wanders aimlessly, her feet bare and dusty. She doesn't see the starving mortals who huddle in their villages, their hopeful sacrifices of their last remaining animals going unanswered. She is lost in her own private hell, a world where the sun gives no warmth and the earth offers no comfort. She is the source of all earthly abundance, yet she herself is consumed by a desolate emptiness. This story of Demeter and Persephone is the core of the Eleusinian mysteries, one of the most famous and secretive religious cults of the ancient world. For nearly 2,000 years, initiates would travel to Eleusis, near Athens, to participate in sacred rites that promised a blessed afterlife. While the exact details of the rituals were a closely guarded secret, punishable by death if revealed, scholars agree they revolved around the reenactment of Demeter's loss and the eventual reunion with her daughter. The myth wasn't just a story. It was a profound spiritual journey that offered its followers hope in the face of death, a promise that just as Persephone returned from the underworld, so too could the human soul find a kind of rebirth. As Demeter walks, you are reminded of a peculiar and often overlooked part of her myth. During her frantic search, she took on the guise of an old woman named Doso and found work as a nursemaid in the palace at Eleusis, caring for the infant prince, Demophan. In her grief, she tried to make the mortal child immortal by anointing him with ambrosia, and shockingly, holding him in the heart of the great fire each night to burn away his mortal flesh. It was a bizarre, dangerous act of love and desperation. When the child's mother saw this and screamed in terror, Demeter was enraged, her divine identity revealed. The ritual was interrupted, and the child remained mortal. This strange, unsettling detail reveals the goddess's distorted state of mind. Her grief was so profound that it warped her life-giving nature into something destructive and terrifying. She eventually reaches the edge of the sea, the same restless domain of her brother Poseidon. She stares out at the waves, but there is no connection, no sibling solace to be found. In some versions of the myth, Poseidon, ever the opportunist, desired her and pursued her. To escape him, she transformed herself into a mare and hid among a herd of horses. But he was the god of horses, and he saw through her disguise, transforming himself into a stallion. From this violent, tragic union, 2 children were born, a daughter whose name was not to be spoken, and a mythical, talking horse named Arion. It's another layer of trauma laid upon her grief, another violation at the hands of one of her own family members. Her story is a testament to resilience, but a grim one. She forces the hand of Zeus himself, faced with the extinction of humanity, and therefore the extinction of all worship and sacrifice. He finally relents and brokers a deal. Persephone will be allowed to return, but because she ate a few pomegranate seeds in the underworld, she is bound to it and must spend a portion of every year there as its queen. Demeter accepts this compromise, and with her daughter's return for the first part of the year, she allows the earth to bloom again. Spring and summer are the result of her joy. The barren, cold months of autumn and winter are the result of her recurring, annual sorrow. The very seasons that govern our lives are, in this telling, the product of a goddess's cyclical heartbreak and reunion. It's the most relatable pain point of all, a story that grounds the immense power of the gods in the deeply human experience of love, loss, and the faint, enduring hope of return. As Demeter's annual joy returns to the world, you feel the landscape transforming around you. The brittle, gray stalks in the fields soften, infused with a sudden, impossible surge of green. The cracked earth darkens and grows damp, releasing the rich, loamy scent of life renewed. The sun, once harsh and empty, now feels like a warm hand on your skin, a benevolent presence coaxing buds from dormant branches. A gentle breeze whispers through new leaves, and with it comes a sound, faint at first, then growing in clarity and purity. It is the sound of a lyre, each note a perfect, crystalline drop of harmony in the silent air. You are drawn towards the music, walking through a world waking from a long, sad dream. You find its source in a sun-drenched glade, where a figure of almost painful beauty lounges against an ancient olive tree. This is Apollo, the radiant one, son of Zeus and Leto, god of music, poetry, prophecy, medicine, and the sun itself. He is the very picture of civilized perfection. His golden hair seems to capture and amplify the sunlight, and his form is flawless, the ideal of masculine grace that sculptors for centuries will try and fail to replicate. The music that flows from the tortoiseshell lyre in his hands is mathematically precise, emotionally resonant, and utterly perfect. It is the sound of reason, of order, of a universe in perfect balance. But as you listen, you feel something else beneath the beauty. A chill. His perfection is not warm or inviting. It is cold, hard, and demanding. He plays not for the joy of creation, but for the affirmation of his own flawlessness. You feel his presence as a constant, low-level judgment. He is the divine embodiment of that brilliant, genius artist who is also a terrifying narcissist. His gaze, the color of the sky on a crisp, clear morning, sweeps over the glade, and you feel an instinctive urge to check your own posture, to find some flaw in yourself. His standard is divinity, and everything else is a disappointment. You are reminded of the unfortunate satyr, Marsyas. A creature of the wild woods, Marsyas found a flute that had been discarded by the goddess Athena. He taught himself to play, and the music he made was wild, passionate, and deeply emotional. It was the music of the earth, of untamed nature. In his hubris, he grew so proud of his skill that he dared to challenge Apollo to a musical contest. Apollo, the god of harmony and order, accepted with a smile that did not reach his cold eyes. The contest was held, and the music of Marsyas was beautiful, moving the nymphs and forest spirits to tears with its raw, untamed power. Then Apollo played. His music was different. It was not of the earth, but of the heavens. It was the sound of the spheres, of light and logic, a perfect, intricate web of harmony that left the listeners breathless with its sheer, intellectual brilliance. When he was done, he added a new condition. The winner must be able to play their instrument upside down. For his lyre, this was simple. For Marsyas and his flute, it was impossible. Apollo was declared the victor, but for him, winning wasn't enough. The challenge itself was an insult. The very idea that this wild, chaotic music could be compared to his own perfect art was a sacrilege. And his punishment was one of the most horrifying in all of Greek myth. He had Marsyas seized, and as a lesson to all who might display such hubris, he flayed the satyr alive, nailing his skin to a pine tree. It was not an act of rage. It was a cold, clinical, and utterly monstrous act of artistic critique. So before this great story continues, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you're enjoying our journey together. Your support means the world. This chilling capacity for cruelty is a core part of his being, a darkness that directly contradicts his bright exterior. He is the god of healing, yet his arrows can also bring sudden, virulent plagues upon cities that displease him. This is a shocking contradiction that scholars still discuss. How can the god of medicine also be a god of pestilence? It shows that his power over health is absolute. He can give it, and he can take it away with terrifying ease. He is not a gentle doctor. He is the ultimate authority on the line between life and death, and he demands absolute respect. You feel this terrifying nature in his role as the god of prophecy. The oracle at Delphi was his most powerful cult site, a place where kings and commoners alike came to seek knowledge of the future. But Apollo's prophecies, delivered through a priestess known as the Pythia, were famously cryptic, ambiguous, and dangerous. A king asking if he should go to war might be told, "A great empire will fall," leaving him to guess if it would be his enemies or his own. The truth was there, but it was wrapped in riddles, a test of intelligence. A wrong interpretation could lead to ruin. Apollo doesn't just give you the answers, he makes you prove you are worthy of them. There are no easy A's in his classroom. His petty, vindictive nature extends to his love life as well. When the priestess Cassandra spurned his advances, he did not harm her physically. He enacted a far more psychologically cruel revenge. He had already given her the gift of perfect prophecy, and he did not take it back. Instead, he cursed her so that her true and accurate predictions would never be believed. She was doomed to see every disaster coming: the Trojan horse, the fall of the city, her own death, and to be utterly powerless to convince anyone, dismissed as a madwoman. It was a punishment of exquisite, intellectual cruelty, a torment designed by a god who understands that the greatest pain is not physical, but the agony of a mind that knows the truth and is utterly alone with it. He is a god of light who is capable of creating the most profound darkness in the human soul. And as the last perfect note of his lyre fades, leaving a silence that feels more menacing than the music itself. You understand that to be loved by Apollo can be just as dangerous as to be his enemy. From the bright, judgmental glare of the sun god, you retreat into the cool embrace of twilight. The world softens, its edges blurring as the sun bleeds away below the horizon. The air grows still and cool, carrying the scent of damp earth, crushed pine needles, and the subtle perfume of night-blooming jasmine. You find yourself at the edge of a vast, ancient forest, a place untouched by axe or plow. The trees here are giants, their thick canopies forming a ceiling so dense that only slivers of the rising moon can penetrate it, dappling the forest floor in shifting patterns of silver and black. This is the domain of Artemis, Apollo's twin sister, the eternal maiden, mistress of the hunt and the wilderness. If her brother's realm was one of dazzling, orderly light, hers is a kingdom of shadow, silence, and instinct. There is no music here, only the profound quiet of the wild, the soft rustle of an unseen animal in the undergrowth, the distant, mournful call of an owl, the whisper of wind in the high branches. Every sound is sharp, distinct, and meaningful. You feel a presence long before you see her. It's a feeling of being watched, not by a single pair of eyes, but by the entire forest. You are an intruder here, a creature of civilization in a world that operates on older, wilder rules. Then you see her. She stands in a moonlit clearing, not as a queen on a throne, but as a part of the landscape itself. She is tall and lean, her body corded with the practical muscle of a lifelong athlete. She wears a simple, short tunic that allows for easy movement, and a quiver of silver arrows is slung across her back. Her beauty is not the polished, self-aware beauty of Aphrodite or the severe regality of Hera. It is a formidable, untamed beauty, like that of a wolf or a hawk, efficient, powerful, and utterly indifferent to your opinion. She is surrounded by her companions, a band of nymphs as wild and free as she is, and a pack of lean, silver-gray hounds that move with a silent, fluid grace. They are not pets, they are partners. The entire group exudes an aura of complete self-sufficiency. They need nothing from the world of cities or the court of Olympus. This forest provides everything. Her defining characteristic is her fierce, uncompromising independence. As a young goddess, she went to her father, Zeus, and asked him for a series of gifts: to remain a virgin forever, to have a bow and arrows forged by the Cyclopes, to have the mountains and forests as her domain, and to have a retinue of companions to hunt with. This vow of eternal maidenhood was not about shyness or fear. It was a radical political statement. In a divine and mortal world where women were primarily defined by their marriage and their children, Artemis refused to be anyone's property. She chose autonomy. She is the ultimate outsider, the goddess who opted out of the endless family drama and political maneuvering of Olympus to create her own society, on her own terms. Her boundaries are absolute, and the punishment for crossing them is swift and terrifyingly disproportionate. You are reminded of the tragic story of the hunter Actaeon. He was, by all accounts, a good man, a skilled hunter who respected the woods. But one day, he stumbled upon a secluded grotto where Artemis and her nymphs were bathing. He saw the goddess naked, Her reaction was not one of human embarrassment or even simple anger. It was the reaction of a wild creature whose sanctuary has been violated. The intrusion was an unforgivable transgression. She didn't scream or cover herself. She simply scooped up a handful of water, splashed it in his face, and spoke a curse. Actaeon felt his limbs begin to change, antlers sprouting from his head. He was transformed into a stag. His own hunting dogs, the loyal companions he had raised from pups, caught his new scent. They saw not their master, but prey. He tried to call out to them, but only the braying of a terrified deer came out. They chased him down and tore him to pieces. Artemis did not watch. The punishment was the natural consequence of the violation. The sanctity of her space was restored. You can't help but draw a parallel to the modern craving for personal space, for a break from the constant demands of the world. Artemis is the patron goddess of the do not disturb sign. Her sacred groves are the ultimate private space, and the penalty for intrusion is severe. There are no warning signs, no second chances. You are simply expected to know better than to trespass. This image of the lithe, virginal huntress is the one most people know. But scholars point to a much older, more complex version of the goddess that creates a fascinating paradox. The famous cult statue of Artemis of Ephesus depicts a figure with a rigid posture, adorned with a strange, bumpy bodice of multiple, rounded protrusions. For centuries, these were assumed to be many breasts, a symbol of extreme fertility. Modern scholars now debate whether they might be bull testicles from sacrificial animals, or gourds, also symbols of agricultural bounty. Whatever they are, they represent a powerful, life-giving force, seemingly at odds with the virgin goddess of the hunt. This suggests she was once a much broader nature deity, a mistress of animals who was not just a huntress, but also a protector of childbirth and the young of all species. She is both the virgin, fiercely protective of her own body, and the one who presides over the vulnerability of birth. She is the moon to her brother's sun. He is civilization, order, and the bright, harsh light of reason. She is the wilderness, instinct, and the mysterious, intuitive light of the moon. He represents the music created by man. She represents the profound silence of nature that existed long before any instrument was ever made. As she turns her head, her silver eyes seeming to pierce the shadows, you feel the immense power of that silence. It is a silence that demands respect. You feel the need to retreat, to back away slowly, to leave this sacred, dangerous place as you found it. You leave her forest with a newfound appreciation for the wild, both in the world and in the self, and a deep understanding that some boundaries are, and should be, absolute. You pull away from the wild, moonlit silence of the forest and find yourself drawn back towards the hum of thought, of strategy, of civilization. The setting is no longer a natural landscape, but a place of deliberate construction. You stand in what appears to be a divine war room, a chamber within the luminous halls of Olympus, but one with a distinctly different feel. The air here is not thick with emotion or tension, but with a cool, intellectual energy. Spread across a vast table of polished gray stone is not a feast, but a map. It is a living, three-dimensional map of a mortal city, its tiny buildings and streets rendered in shimmering light. Miniature armies, like glowing chess pieces, are arrayed for battle. Presiding over this table is a goddess whose presence is as formidable as any you have yet encountered, but her power is of a different quality. This is Athena, born not from a womb, but sprung fully grown and fully armed from the head of Zeus himself. She wears a simple but elegant peplos, and on her head is a bronze helmet, pushed back to reveal a face that is intelligent, focused, and perpetually serious. Her gray eyes, famously described as owl-eyed, miss nothing. They are not the restless, paranoid eyes of her father, but the calm, analytical eyes of a master strategist. Her wisdom is her most famous attribute, but as you observe her, you realize it is not a gentle, philosophical wisdom. It is a sharp, competitive, and practical intelligence. She is the goddess of strategy, of tactics, of the clever solution that wins the war, the legal case, or the argument. She is the patron of heroes, but she doesn't offer them brute strength. She offers them the crucial piece of advice, the clever trick, the tactical advantage that allows them to overcome a stronger foe. She is the divine whisper of work smarter, not harder. You watch as she gestures, her long fingers tracing a path through the glowing city on the map. She is advising another god, perhaps Ares, the god of war himself, who stands opposite her, looking bored and impatient. While he would advocate for a full-frontal, bloody assault, Athena points out a weakness in the city's aqueduct system, a forgotten side gate, a political faction within the walls that could be turned. Her approach to conflict is not about glorious, chaotic battle. It is about efficient, decisive victory with the minimum necessary expenditure of resources. She finds his desire for pure carnage distasteful and amateurish. This intellectual superiority is the core of her being. Her birth story is a shocking testament to this. Zeus swallowed her mother, Medes, goddess of wisdom, to prevent a prophesied son from overthrowing him. But Medes' wisdom could not be contained. Inside Zeus, she hammered out a suit of armor and a helmet for her unborn daughter. The relentless sound of her work gave Zeus a splitting headache of cosmic proportions. In agony, he commanded Hephaestus to crack open his skull with an axe, and from the wound, Athena emerged, a fully formed adult, armored and shouting a war cry. She is literally born from a divine headache, a perfect metaphor for the often painful process of brilliant thought. This origin makes her uniquely her father's daughter, untainted by any other maternal line, which is a source of her immense pride and her favored position with Zeus. Her competitive nature is legendary and not always admirable. Consider her contest with the mortal weaver, Arachne. Arachne was a young woman of incredible talent, whose tapestries were so beautiful that people said she must have been taught by Athena herself. Arachne, full of youthful pride, denied this and claimed her skill was her own, even boasting she could best the goddess in a contest. Athena, disguised as an old woman, warned her against such hubris, but Arachne persisted. The contest began. Athena wove a magnificent tapestry depicting the glory of the Olympian gods and the terrible fate of mortals who dared to challenge them. A clear, divine threat. Arachne, in an act of incredible defiance, wove a tapestry that was just as technically perfect, but its subject matter was a stunning critique of the gods, depicting their many affairs, deceptions, and abuses of power. Athena, seeing the flawless skill and the subversive message, could not find a single fault in the weaving. Enraged by this, not just by the challenge to her skill, but by the public airing of the gods' dirty laundry, she shredded Arachne's masterpiece and struck the girl. In terror and despair, Arachne tried to hang herself. Athena, in a moment of what could be interpreted as either pity or a final, cruel twist of the knife, saved her from death but transformed her into a spider, cursing her and her descendants to weave forever. The story is a chilling lesson. Athena's patronage of the arts comes with a non-negotiable condition. Do not ever suggest you are better than she is. Historians and classicists still debate the meaning of her constant companion, the owl. Is it simply a symbol of watchfulness, of seeing in the dark? Or does it represent her connection to older, pre-Greek chthonic deities of wisdom? Whatever its origin, the owl perfectly captures her essence, a silent predator of the mind, whose wisdom is not passive, but active, watchful, and deadly. She is a goddess of contradictions. She is the patron of civilized crafts like weaving and pottery, yet she is also a warrior goddess who delights in the strategy of battle. She is a virgin like Artemis, but not out of a desire for wild solitude. Her celibacy is a function of her focus. She has no time for the distractions of romance or family, which she likely views as inefficient and emotionally messy. There are no relatable pain points in her emotional life, because she appears to have walled it off entirely in favor of pure, relentless intellect. She is the ultimate career-focused deity, who sees every interaction as a potential move in a cosmic game of strategy. As she turns from the war table, her task complete, her gaze seems to pass right through you. It's not that she doesn't see you, it's that you do not register as strategically important. You are simply data to be processed and dismissed. In her presence, you feel the immense power of a mind that is always 5 steps ahead, a mind for whom wisdom is not a comfort, but a weapon. Leaving the cool, intellectual presence of Athena, you are thrown into a scene of utter chaos. The air, once still and charged with thought, is now thick with the metallic scent of blood, the acrid smell of sweat, and the raw, coppery tang of fear. The sound is a deafening, discordant symphony of violence, not the clash of swords or the breaking of shields, but the ugly, wet, visceral sounds of pure conflict, muffled and made distant by your dreamlike perspective. You are on the edge of a battlefield, a churning, muddy field under a bruised and angry sky. This is the playground of Ares, the god of war, and he is not the glorious, noble warrior of heroic propaganda. He is a force of pure, unadulterated, mindless violence. You see him not as a general directing his troops, but as a berserker in the thick of the fray. He is a physical titan, clad in heavy bronze armor that is dented, scratched, and splattered with gore. He wields a massive spear and a heavy shield, but he uses them with a brutal, almost clumsy force, reveling not in the skill of combat, but in the sheer, visceral act of destruction. A blood-curdling war cry rips from his throat, a sound of pure, ecstatic rage. He is the embodiment of everything the other gods find distasteful about conflict. While Athena represents strategy, tactics, and the clean win, Ares represents the ugly, brutal, and chaotic reality of war, the bloodlust, the panic, the senseless slaughter. He is not respected. He is feared and for the most part disliked. Even his own father, Zeus, expresses his open contempt for him in the epics, calling him the most hateful of all the gods, a being who delights only in strife and bloodshed. He is the divine equivalent of the family member no one wants to invite to parties because they always start a fight. You feel the stark difference between him and Athena. She fights to win. He fights because he loves fighting. There is no higher purpose, no strategic goal. There is only the adrenal rush of combat, the frenzy of destruction. His companions are not noble virtues, but his terrifying children, personifications of war's horrors. Phobos, fear, and Deimos, terror, who ride alongside him, spreading panic through the ranks of mortals. His sister and sometimes companion, Eris, strife, is there too, sowing discord and turning allies against each other with a malicious grin. This is not a team built for victory. It's a posse dedicated to escalating chaos. A quirky and telling historical fact is that despite being the god of war, Ares had very few major cults or temples in ancient Greece. The Greeks, who were no strangers to warfare, seemed to recognize and fear the aspect of war he represented. They respected Athena's strategic warfare, but they did not build grand monuments to the mindless slaughter that Ares embodied. His most famous place of worship was the Areopagus, or Hill of Ares in Athens, but it eventually became the site for the city's homicide court. It's a fitting, ironic evolution. The place named for the god of violence became the place where violence was judged and brought to order. You witness a scene that perfectly encapsulates his nature. A hero, empowered by Athena, manages to wound him. A mortal spear, guided by a goddess's wisdom, pierces his divine flesh. The scream he lets out is not one of warrior's defiance, but a bellow of shock, pain, and childish outrage. Homer describes it as being as loud as 10,000 men shouting at once. He doesn't stand and fight through the pain. He flees. He runs from the battlefield, a giant, hulking god, and flies back to Olympus to complain to his father. He shows Zeus the wound, whining about the unfairness of it all, how his sister Athena helped a mere mortal to harm him. He is not a stoic soldier. He is a brute and a bully who can dish it out but can't take it. Zeus, in that moment, offers little sympathy, essentially telling him to stop complaining, confirming his low status even within his own family. This brings up a fascinating point that scholars often discuss. Was Ares a true Greek god or an import? Some theories suggest his worship originated in the more warlike northern region of Thrace, a place the sophisticated southern Greeks considered barbaric. This would explain his outsider status, his lack of integration into the more civilized aspects of the pantheon. He feels less like a core member of the family and more like a distant, problematic cousin they are forced to acknowledge. His most famous affair with Aphrodite, the goddess of love, is a story of pure, primal forces coming together, the brutal attraction of opposites. It's not a romance, It's a story of raw, physical passion. The tale of how they were caught in bed by Aphrodite's clever husband, Hephaestus, is played for laughs in the myths. Hephaestus forged an unbreakable, invisible net and trapped the lovers, then summoned all the other gods to come and mock their humiliation. It's a moment of high comedy, but it also reinforces Ares' position. He is not just defeated, he is made a fool of, his brute force utterly helpless against cleverness and craft. He is caught, exposed, and laughed out of the room, the ultimate humiliation for a being so reliant on his image of fearsome power. There are no complex motivations to decipher with Ares, no hidden layers of grief or intellectual pride. He is exactly what he appears to be, an engine of rage. There are no relatable pain points because his experience is so far removed from the structured conflicts of modern life. He is not the god of difficult negotiations or office politics. He is the god of the bar fight, the riot, the moment when all reason fails and pure, destructive impulse takes over. As you pull away from the muddy, blood-soaked field, the sounds of chaos fading, you feel a sense of relief. Ares is a necessary part of the cosmic order, a representation of a dark and undeniable aspect of existence. But he is a force best observed from a very, very safe distance. You retreat from the brutal, ugly noise of the battlefield, and the air around you changes once more. The scent of blood and iron is washed away, replaced by an intoxicating fragrance of salt, sea foam, and 1,000 blooming flowers. The light softens, becoming rosy and golden, as if you are permanently suspended in the perfect moment just after sunrise. You hear the gentle lapping of waves on a shore and a soft, melodic laughter that seems to hang in the air like perfume. You find yourself on a sun-drenched beach on the island of Cythera, the sand a fine, pale gold, the water a tranquil, impossible turquoise. And there, emerging from the gentle surf, is Aphrodite, the goddess of love, beauty, and desire. Her origin story is as strange and violent as any, yet the result is this vision of perfect loveliness. She was born from the sea foam that churned up when the severed genitals of the sky god Uranus, overthrown by his son Cronus, were cast into the sea. She is born from an act of primordial castration, a being of pure beauty created from an act of terrible violence. This shocking origin is the first clue that her domain is not as soft and gentle as it appears. As she walks from the water, her form is flawless, an ideal of feminine beauty so powerful it is almost difficult to look at directly. It's not just that she is pretty. Her beauty is a fundamental force of nature, like gravity or light. It inspires immediate, unquestioning devotion. Flowers bloom in her footprints on the sand. The air around her shimmers with a palpable aura of charm. She is followed by the Graces, personifications of charm and beauty, who move to attend her, draping her in fine, diaphanous silks and arranging her lustrous hair. But as you watch this scene, you begin to perceive the immense effort behind the effortlessness. Her perfection is not a passive state, it is a full-time job. Her every movement is a pose, her every glance a carefully calibrated tool of influence. Her power is derived entirely from her desirability, and this makes her incredibly powerful, but also incredibly vulnerable. Her position requires constant, exhausting maintenance. There is no dressing down for Aphrodite, no casual Fridays. Her very identity is tied up in being the most beautiful, the most desirable at all times. You can feel the pressure of it, the endless, grinding need for validation and admiration. Her marriage to Hephaestus, Section 11, the lame and hardworking smith god, is one of the great ironies of the Olympian family. The most beautiful goddess was you retreat from the raw, metallic ugliness of the battlefield, and the atmosphere changes completely. The air becomes soft, warm, and heavy, with the intoxicating scent of 1,000 flowers, roses, meat given to the least physically attractive god, a political move by Zeus to prevent the other gods from fighting over her. Idyls and lilies, all mingled with the faint, salty tang of a warm sea breeze. You find yourself on a sun was a marriage she immediately and consistently ignored, viewing it as an insulting cage. Her long-standing affair with Ares was not kissed shore, where gentle, turquoise waves lap at pristine white sand. The light here is soft and golden, as just a dalliance. It was a union of two fundamental forces, desire and strife, a combination that has fueled countless human if filtered through honey, making everything look beautiful, hazy, and dreamlike. In the center of this idyllic scene, surrounded dramas, you feel the darker side of her power, the way it can curdle into vanity and vindictive jealousy. She by fluttering doves and attended by the graces, personifications of charm, beauty, and goodwill, is Aphrodite, does not tolerate rivals. Consider the story of Psyche, a mortal princess whose beauty was so great that people began to neglect the goddess of love, beauty, and desire. She is not simply beautiful, she is beauty itself. Her form is the worship of Aphrodite in her favor. This was not just an insult to Aphrodite, it was a direct threat to her embodiment of a desire so powerful it can sway the hearts of gods and mortals alike. To look at her is to feel a pang power base. Her reaction was not to simply punish Psyche, but to devise a truly cruel and humiliating fate for her. Of longing, a sudden, inexplicable ache for something you didn't even know you wanted. Her power is not in she sent her son, Eros, or Cupid, to make Psyche fall in love with the most vile and monstrous creature he a weapon, or in a display of force, but in a simple, effortless magnetism that pulls all things toward her. She wanted to turn Psyche's beauty into a source of her own debasement and misery. But as you observe her, you quickly realize that being the vessel of such immense power is not the effortless paradise it appears plan, of course. Backfired when Eros accidentally pricked himself with his own arrow and fell madly in love with to be. It is a full-time job. You see her examining her reflection in a polished bronze mirror, her brow Psyche, but Aphrodite's initial impulse is what's so revealing. Her jealousy is not like Hera's, furrowed with a concentration as intense as Athena's over her war maps, a single strand of her perfect, honey which is rooted in a violation of a sacred contract. Aphrodite's jealousy is that of a celebrity seeing their spotlight blonde hair is out of place. One of the graces with nimble fingers immediately corrects it. Aphrodite's size stolen, a brand seeing its market share decline. It is a professional jealousy, and her methods are ruthless. when sigh of relief is audible. Her perfection is not a natural state. It is a state that requires constant, exhausting vigilance and maintenance. He later came to her for help. Aphrodite subjected her to a series of impossible, life-threatening tasks designed to destroy. Her origin story sets her apart from the other Olympians. She was not born in the usual way. During her, it was not the act of a goddess. It was the act of a deeply insecure rival trying to eliminate the great battle when Cronus overthrew his father, Uranus, the sky god. He castrated him and through competition. Historians and archaeologists offer a fascinating context for her character, suggesting that Aphrodite evolved from much older, more powerful his severed genitals into the sea. From the churning sea foam that arose, Aphrodite emerged, fully formed, and was near Eastern goddesses like Ishtar and Astarte. These were not just goddesses of love. They were formidable deities of both carried to the shore on a seashell. She is older than Zeus and his siblings, born from a moment of primal violence and creation and destruction, of sex and of war. This weird history tidbit explains the strange duality in her character, cosmic creation. This makes her power more ancient, more fundamental. While the other gods bicker over power and territory, she rules over an even more potent force, the irresistible urge that ensures the continuation of life itself. This power, however, the gentle, loving goddess who is also capable of terrifying cruelty and who is drawn to the violent god of war. The softer, more romanticized Greek version still carries the echoes of this older, more dangerous deity. Her power causes chaos wherever with a dangerous lack of control, both for her and for those around her. Her love is not the gentle, compassionate emotion of poetry. It is often a chaotic, destructive force, a kind of divine madness she can inflict upon others. She goes, often without her even trying. The entire Trojan War, with its decade of slaughter and the complete destruction of a great recall, the story of Hippolytus, a young man devoted to the chaste goddess Artemis, who scorned the worship city, was ignited by a moment of her vanity. At a wedding, the goddess of strife, Eris, threw a golden apple of Aphrodite and the desires of the flesh. To Aphrodite, this was not a matter of personal preference. It was inscribed to the fairest into the midst of the goddesses. Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite all immediately claimed it professional insult. Her entire domain was being rejected. As punishment, she did not strike him down. She devised a far more cruel. When Zeus refused to be the judge, they turned to the mortal prince, Paris of Troy. Hera offered him power and intricate revenge. She caused his stepmother, Phaedra, to fall madly, obsessively in love with him, when Athena offered him victory in battle. But Aphrodite offered him the most beautiful mortal woman in the world, Helen of Sparta. Paris Hippolytus, horrified, rejected Phaedra's advances. The spurned woman, in her shame, took her own life, of course, chose Helen. The fact that Helen was already married was a trivial detail. Aphrodite's promise and left a note falsely accusing him of assaulting her. His father, Theseus, believed the lie and cursed his own son, setting in motion the abduction, the offended honor, and the catastrophic war. Thousands died, heroes were lost, and a civilization calling upon Poseidon to destroy him. Hippolytus was killed when a monster from the sea terrified his horses, dragging him to his death. Aphrodite's wounded pride led to a cascading family tragedy of epic proportions. She didn't care fell, all stemming from a divine beauty contest. As you stand on the shores of her island, you realize that love is about the collateral damage. Her authority had been asserted. Her own romantic life is a mess. A source of constant in her domain is not a gentle emotion. It is a disruptive, chaotic, and often destructive force. It is divine gossip. In a move that historians see as deeply ironic, she, the goddess of beauty and desire, was married to an obsession, a madness that can topple kingdoms. Her beauty is a weapon, and she wields it with the casual Hephaestus, the lame and soot-stained god of the forge. It was a political marriage, perhaps arranged by Zeus to prevent the other gods from fighting over her. But it was a loveless one. Aphrodite, who could have anyone, was thoughtless grace of a master, leaving a trail of broken hearts, shattered lives, and epic wars in her wake, bound to the one god considered the least desirable. It's no surprise she began her famous, passionate affair with the handsome. There is a profound loneliness to her existence. She is universally desired, but perhaps never truly known, trapped in the gilded cage of her own perfect face. You are pulled away from the sun-drenched, perfumed beach and drawn down into the fiery heart of a mountain. The air grows thick and hot, smelling of burning coal, molten metal, and the sharp, mineral tang of volcanic rock. The soft sounds of the sea are replaced by a rhythmic, resonant sound of a hammer striking an anvil, a steady, powerful beat that seems to shake the very foundations of the earth. You are in the forge of Hephaestus, the divine craftsman, the smith god, and the most tragically misunderstood of all the Olympians. The cavern is a marvel of subterranean engineering. Rivers of molten bronze and gold flow in channels carved into the rock floor, casting a fierce, dancing light on the walls. Intricate machinery, powered by bellows operated by golden automatons of his own creation, hiss and pump, feeding the great furnaces that roar with a white-hot intensity. Piled against the walls are his creations, gleaming armor that can turn any blade, intricate jewelry that seems to hold starlight within it, and strange, wonderful devices whose purpose you can only guess at. This is not just a workshop. It is the engine room of the gods, and in the center of it all stands Hephaestus himself. He is not like the other male gods. They are pictures of physical perfection, tall and graceful. Hephaestus is powerful, his shoulders and arms thick with the heavy muscles of a lifelong smith, but he is misshapen. He was born with a lame leg, and he walks with a pronounced, hobbling gait. His face is ruddy and soot-stained, his beard often singed, and his expression is one of perpetual, weary concentration, mixed with a deep, simmering resentment. He is the ultimate outcast. His own mother, Hera, was so horrified by his deformity at birth that she threw him from the heights of Olympus. He fell for a day and a night, landing in the sea where he was rescued and raised by the sea nymph Thetis. This primal rejection is the defining trauma of his life. He was cast out of the beautiful, perfect world of the gods for being imperfect. And yet, it is that same world that is utterly dependent on his skill. He is the one who forges Zeus's thunderbolts, Poseidon's trident, Apollo's chariot, and the arrows of Artemis. He builds their thrones, their palaces, their weapons. He is the blue-collar god in a white-collar world, the brilliant but unglamorous engineer who makes all their elegant lives possible. You feel his bitterness as a palpable heat radiating from him, as real as the heat from the forge. Every strike of his hammer is infused with it. He works with a furious, obsessive focus, pouring all of his pain and rage into his craft. His creations are flawless, beautiful, and touched with a kind of genius that none of the other gods possess. But there is no joy in his work. There is only a grim, powerful necessity. This is the only way he knows how to prove his worth, the only language in which he can command respect. His return to Olympus is a story of clever, long overdue revenge. After being cast out, he bided his time, honing his craft. He forged a magnificent golden throne and sent it to Olympus as a gift for his mother, Hera. Delighted, she sat upon it, only to find herself trapped by invisible, unbreakable bonds. None of the gods, with all their immense power, could free her. They were forced to beg Hephaestus to return. He refused, still nursing the wound of his rejection. It was only when Dionysus, the god of wine, got him drunk and coaxed him back to Olympus on the back of a donkey, a comical, undignified procession, that he finally agreed to release his mother. He didn't come back begging for acceptance. He came back on his own terms, having demonstrated that their power was useless without his skill. It was a moment of supreme triumph for the rejected son. This story illustrates a scholarly point of debate: the role of disability in the ancient world. Hephaestus is one of the few imperfect beings in a pantheon of perfection. His lameness could be seen as a mark of his connection to the earth and to fire, chthonic forces that are powerful but not pure, like the sky. He represents the idea that great creative power can be born from suffering and marginalization. His marriage to Aphrodite was the ultimate cosmic joke, a source of endless pain and humiliation. The most beautiful goddess was given to him, but it was a gift that only highlighted his own perceived ugliness. He loved her, creating for her the most exquisite jewelry, including a famous enchanted girdle that made her even more irresistible. But she repaid his devotion with open contempt and flagrant infidelity. The story of him catching her and Ares in the invisible net is often told as a farce. But standing here in his forge, you feel the profound pain behind the act. It was the desperate, brilliant, and deeply humiliating act of a man trying to expose the truth, to force others to see the hurt he endured daily. He didn't punish them with violence. He punished them with shame, the only weapon he had against the beautiful people who looked down on him. There's a deeply relatable pain point here, the feeling of being the smart, capable person who is constantly overlooked in favor of the charming and attractive. You watch as he works on a new creation. It is a shield for a mortal hero, Achilles. As he hammers and shapes the bronze, he begins to inlay it with other metals, creating not just a pattern but a living world in miniature. He creates the earth, the sky, and the sea. He depicts two cities, one at peace with weddings and festivals and justice being dispensed in the marketplace, the other at war, besieged and full of strife. He shows fields being plowed, grapes being harvested, and lions attacking a herd of cattle. It is the entire scope of human life, in all its joy and sorrow, captured on a single piece of armor. It is a work of breathtaking genius, a masterpiece of art and empathy. And it is being made by the one God who has known the most rejection, the most profound sorrow. He may be an outcast, but he is the only one who seems to truly understand and be able to replicate the full, complex, imperfect world. From the deep, fiery heat of the forge, you are whisked away into the open air. The rhythmic clang of the hammer fades, replaced by a sense of rapid, dizzying movement. You feel a rush of wind, the blur of landscapes, mountains, seas, and cities, passing below you in a heartbeat. You are following the path of the divine messenger, the God who bridges all realms, Hermes. He appears beside you not with a thunderous announcement or a radiant glow, but with a quiet, sudden presence, as if he simply decided to be here and so he was. He is youthful and athletic, his body lean and wired with a restless energy. He wears a traveler's cap and carries a herald's staff, a winged rod entwined with two serpents, known as the caduceus. On his feet are his most famous accessories, a pair of winged sandals that carry him with impossible speed across any terrain. But his most defining feature is his expression. It is one of perpetual, intelligent amusement, his eyes twinkling with a knowing, mischievous light. He is charming, approachable, and instantly likable, and that is precisely what makes him so dangerous. Hermes is the god of a bewildering number of things. He is the god of travelers, merchants, and shepherds, but also of thieves, liars, and tricksters. He is the god of boundaries, the thresholds of doorways, the borders between states, and most importantly, the border between life and death, guiding souls to Hades. He is the ultimate go-between, the master of the transaction, whether it's a trade of goods, an exchange of information, or the negotiation of a treaty. He is the most sociable of the gods, the one who can move between all the different divine factions and all the realms without being tied to any of them. He serves Zeus, but you get the sense that his true loyalty is only to himself and to the thrill of the game. His trickster nature was apparent from the moment of his birth. As a newborn infant, on the very first day of his life, he grew bored in his cradle. He slipped away, and his first act in the world was to steal a herd of cattle from his older brother, Apollo. But he didn't just steal them. He did it with ingenious, deceitful flair. He made the cattle walk backward to confuse their tracks and fashioned his own sandals to leave strange, unidentifiable footprints. He then cleverly sacrificed 2 of the cows to the gods, cheekily including himself among the 12, and, using the entrails and a tortoise shell, invented the lyre on the spot. When a furious Apollo finally tracked him down, the baby Hermes, wrapped innocently in his blankets, simply asked, "What's a cow?" He lied with a completely straight face. The dispute went before Zeus, who was not angry but immensely amused by the audacity and cleverness of his new son. The conflict was resolved when Hermes charmed Apollo by playing the lyre he had just invented. Apollo was so enchanted by the instrument that he traded the rest of the stolen herd for it. This story is a perfect encapsulation of Hermes. He is not malicious like Ares or coldly cruel like Apollo. His deceptions are a form of art, a display of wit. He is the god of the clever lie, the brilliant scam, the loophole in the contract. He represents the kind of intelligence that thrives in ambiguity and complexity, the street smarts that so often outmaneuver brute force or stately wisdom. While Athena is the grand strategist, Hermes is the nimble opportunist who can talk his way into and out of any situation. You follow him on one of his errands, a message from Zeus to a minor goddess on a remote island. He doesn't fly in a straight, efficient line. He zigs and zags, taking detours, his curiosity pulling him in a dozen different directions. He pauses to whisper a misleading rumor into a merchant's ear, just to see what will happen. He subtly alters a signpost at a crossroads, sending a group of travelers on an unexpected adventure. He helps a struggling shepherd find a lost lamb, not out of pure kindness, but because the challenge of locating it was interesting. He doesn't operate on a grand moral scale of good and evil. He operates on a scale of interesting versus boring. This makes him the great facilitator of the myths. Whenever a hero needs a special item, whenever a secret message needs to be delivered, whenever a god is trapped and needs a clever escape plan, it is almost always Hermes who is called upon. He is the one who gave Perseus the winged sandals and the reflective shield to defeat Medusa. He is the one who helped Odysseus escape the clutches of the nymph Calypso. He is the divine problem solver, the one who knows all the back doors and secret handshakes of the cosmos. A strange but fascinating aspect of his worship relates to Hermes, which were stone pillars, typically with a bearded head of Hermes on top, and rather explicitly, male genitalia carved at the base. These were placed at crossroads, gateways, and boundaries throughout Greece. They were objects of reverence, thought to bring luck and ward off evil. The act of vandalizing these Hermes was a profound act of sacrilege, as the Athenians discovered on the eve of their disastrous expedition to Sicily. This quirky historical fact shows his deep connection to the most fundamental and transitional spaces of human life. The doorway of a home, the edge of a field, the fork in a road. He is the god of the in-between. As the psychopomp, the guide of souls, you see a more somber side to him. He is the friendly face that appears to the dying, the reassuring presence that takes their hand and leads them on the path to the underworld. He doesn't judge them. He simply guides them across that ultimate boundary. He is the one character who is on good terms with the bright Olympians, the grim Hades, and the chaotic mortals. His charm is his passport, and his neutrality is his shield. Watching him, you understand that he is the embodiment of communication itself in all its forms. He is the eloquent speech of the herald, the whispered gossip, the comforting lie, the clever joke, and the final, silent guidance into the next life. He is the necessary lubricant that allows the grinding, clashing gears of the divine and mortal worlds to turn. He is utterly charming, completely untrustworthy, and absolutely essential. And as he delivers his message with a wink and a smile before vanishing in a blur of motion, you are left with the distinct feeling that you've just been expertly and pleasantly manipulated. After the dizzying, high-speed energy of Hermes, The world around you settles into a profound stillness. You find yourself standing in the heart of a home, not a grand palace, but a simple, archetypal dwelling. At the center of the main room is a circular hearth, where a fire burns with a steady, smokeless, and unwavering flame. The light it casts is not fierce or dramatic, but soft, warm, and deeply comforting. It is a light that radiates pure stability. The air smells of warm stone, clean linen, and baking bread. There is a goddess here, but she does not sit on a throne or demand your attention. She is a quiet, unassuming presence near the fire, her gaze fixed on the eternal flame. This is Hestia, the eldest of the original 6 Olympians, and the goddess of the hearth, the home, and the sacred fire of the family. She is perhaps the most powerful of the gods, yet the one who wields her power the least. In a pantheon defined by drama, conflict, and ego, Hestia is a radical force of pure stability. She has no epic myths of conflict or romance. She has no rivalries. She simply is. She took a vow of eternal virginity, not with the fierce, independent defensiveness of Artemis or the career-focused logic of Athena, but as a way to maintain peace. Both Apollo and Poseidon sought her hand in marriage, a union that would have caused immense political strife. To prevent this conflict, Hestia swore on the river Styx to remain a maiden forever, extinguishing a potential war before it could even begin. In gratitude, Zeus granted her the highest honor, to receive the first part of every sacrifice in every household and temple throughout Greece. Before any prayer could be given to another god, an offering had to be made to Hestia. She is the quiet foundation upon which all other worship is built. She is the goddess you thank before you thank anyone else. Her presence is pure calm. You feel the anxieties and tensions of the other gods simply melt away in this space. There is no judgment, no competition, no fear. The fire in her hearth is a symbol of the spiritual center of the family and the state. A new colony setting out from its mother city would carry an ember from the public hearth to light the fire in their new home, a physical link maintaining a continuous, shared identity. She is not the goddess of the building itself, but of the life and connection that happens within it. She is the quiet continuity of civilization. As you stand in this space of perfect, gentle order, a new sound begins to intrude from the outside. It starts as a faint, rhythmic drumming, then grows louder, joined by the high, reedy sound of pipes and wild, ecstatic singing. The steady, peaceful atmosphere of Hestia's hearth is disrupted by a wave of chaotic, joyful, and slightly dangerous energy. You are drawn outside and the scene changes dramatically. You are now on a wooded mountainside at night, under a wild, starry sky. The air is thick with the smell of wine, sweat, and damp earth. A procession of revelers, mostly women known as maenads, dance through the trees. Their hair is unbound, their faces are flushed with ecstatic fervor, and they carry staffs twined with ivy and topped with pine cones. They are lost in a divine madness, a state of blissful, terrifying abandon. And at the head of this wild parade, riding on a chariot pulled by leopards, is Dionysus. He is the god of wine, ecstasy, and ritual madness, the youngest of the Olympians and the only one with a mortal mother, Semele. His story is one of tragedy and triumph. Hera, jealous of Zeus's affair with Semele, tricked the mortal woman into demanding that Zeus reveal his true, divine form to her. Bound by an oath, Zeus complied, and the sight of his pure glory instantly incinerated her. But Zeus managed to rescue the unborn infant Dionysus from the ashes, and in a truly bizarre and shocking act, he stitched the baby into his own thigh, carrying him to term himself. Dionysus is twice born, once from a mortal womb and once from the body of a god. This dual nature is the key to his power. He is an outsider, a latecomer to Olympus, and he had to fight for his place there. Many of his myths revolve around his travels, bringing the gift and the danger of wine to a new city, and the resistance he faces from kings who fear his chaotic influence. Those who accept him and his rites are rewarded with joy and ecstasy. Those who reject him suffer terrible, madness-induced fates. King Pentheus of Thebes, who tried to outlaw his worship, was torn to pieces by the Maenads, led by his own mother, who in her divine frenzy mistook him for a mountain lion. Dionysus is the god of losing control. He represents the dissolution of the self, the breaking down of societal norms and inhibitions through dance, music, and wine. He is the irrational, the emotional, the part of the human psyche that logic cannot tame. He is everything Hestia is not. She is the center, he is the periphery. She is stability, he is chaos. She is the quiet interior of the home. He is the wild exterior of nature. Scholars, particularly the philosopher Nietzsche, famously used the dichotomy of Apollo and Dionysus to describe the two fundamental impulses in art and life. The Apollonian drive for order, reason, and form, and the Dionysian drive for chaos, passion, and ecstatic release. But the contrast between Hestia and Dionysus is perhaps even more fundamental. It is the contrast between the state of being and the state of becoming. Hestia is the anchor, the fixed point. Dionysus is the intoxicating, terrifying, and liberating journey away from that anchor. And yet they are two sides of the same coin. Both offer a form of salvation. Hestia offers the salvation of stability, of a place to belong, a center that will always hold. Dionysus offers the salvation of release, a temporary escape from the rigid confines of the self and society. The ancient Greeks, in their wisdom, understood that a healthy civilization needed both. It needed the steady fire of the hearth to provide a foundation, and it needed the occasional, controlled chaos of the festival to release pressure and allow for renewal. You watch as Dionysus, with a lazy, charming smile, lifts a cup of dark wine. His power is seductive and joyous, but with a sharp, dangerous edge. He is the god of the party that goes on just a little too long, tipping from fun into something wilder and more unpredictable. He and Hestia represent the eternal poles of the human experience. The deep need for a safe, stable home, and the equally deep urge to sometimes run wild in the woods, to lose yourself in the dance, and to be reborn. The wild, ecstatic music of Dionysus's procession begins to fade, the drum beats growing softer, more distant, until they are just a faint pulse merging with the quiet hum of the cosmos. The vivid, emotionally charged scenes of the gods and their domains begin to blur at the edges, the sharp details softening into a gentle, dreamlike haze. You feel yourself drifting upwards and away, leaving the mountainsides and palaces, the forges and the fields, ascending once more into the quiet, starlit space between worlds. You are witnessing the slow twilight of an age. The gods are still here on their cloud-kissed peak, but a subtle change is taking place. Their luminous forms seem a little less solid, their voices a little more like echoes. The world below is changing. The age of myth, where every storm was the anger of a god and every harvest a blessing, is slowly, imperceptibly giving way to something new. The bright, analytical light of human reason, the very quality Athena championed, is beginning to shine on the world, and in its glare, the old gods begin to fade. It is not a violent overthrow, like the one Zeus led against his father. It is a slow, quiet obsolescence. Mortals are starting to look for causes beyond divine whims. They are studying the stars not as celestial beings, but as points of light following mathematical paths. They are developing philosophies that seek virtue and meaning within the human soul, not as gifts from on high. The world is becoming less enchanted, less terrifying, and more explainable. The gods, in their eternal, unchanging existence, are becoming less necessary. You see Zeus on his throne, his thunderbolt resting in his lap, not crackling with latent power but looking more like an inert, historical artifact. The restless, paranoid energy is still there, but it is tinged with a new bewilderment, the confusion of a king who feels his kingdom's borders shrinking, his authority slowly becoming irrelevant. Hera's righteous fury has no new targets, as mortals begin to write their own laws for marriage and fidelity, no longer needing her divine sanction or fearing her wrath. Poseidon's storms are becoming weather patterns, understood and predicted, his rages reclassified as seismic activity. The gods are becoming metaphors. Ares becomes the abstract concept of war, no longer the bellowing warrior on the field. Aphrodite becomes the poetic ideal of love and beauty, her power confined to sonnets and sculptures. Apollo's perfect music is now understood through the physics of sound waves and harmonics. They are transitioning from active participants in the world's drama to characters in the stories that people tell themselves about it. It is a quiet, melancholy fading. They are not dying, they are immortal after all. But they are being relegated to a different kind of existence. Their home on Olympus, once the vibrant, chaotic center of the universe, is becoming a museum, a beautiful, silent monument to a time that has passed. The nectar and ambrosia still sustain them, but there is a profound loneliness in their immortality now. They are powerful beings trapped in a world that has, for the most part, moved on and forgotten them. What remains is their legacy, a complex and often contradictory inheritance woven into the very fabric of Western civilization. Their stories of love, betrayal, jealousy, hubris, and sacrifice have become our archetypes. We still see Zeus in the powerful but flawed leader, Hera in the scorned spouse, Hephaestus in the brilliant but marginalized creator, and Dionysus in the liberating call of the wild. They are no longer worshipped, but they are still deeply, profoundly present in our language, our art, our psychology. They provided a framework for understanding the chaotic, beautiful, and terrifying forces of both the natural world and the human heart. And perhaps that was their true purpose all along. You feel a final, gentle pull, a sense of returning. The shimmering halls of Olympus dissolve completely, and the profound silence of the cosmos gives way to the soft, familiar sounds of your own quiet room. The journey is over. The gods, with all their magnificent flaws and heartbreaking dramas, recede into the realm of story, where they will wait forever for the next sleepy traveler to come and listen to their tales. Let the past sing you to sleep. As our long journey through the halls of Olympus comes to a close, you can feel the last echoes of divine thunder fading into a gentle quiet. The gods, with all their passionate, flawed, and deeply human-like immortal lives, recede into the soft mists of myth. Their stories, born from a time when the world was explained through passion and personality, leave a lasting impression, a reminder of how we have always sought to understand the vast, impersonal forces of life and nature by giving them a face, a name, and a complicated family history. Think of the legacy they left behind, not in ruined temples, but in the very words we use, the art we cherish, and the psychological patterns we still recognize in ourselves and others. Their struggles, though impossibly grand, touch upon the familiar pains of jealousy, ambition, unrequited love, and the search for one's place in the world. As you lie here now, feeling the weight of your own body, the softness of your bed, you can appreciate the profound comfort of your own mortal life. Your joys and sorrows are your own. They do not cause famines or start wars. You have the freedom to change, to grow, to learn, and to move on in a way that the eternally trapped Olympians never could. Let the final images of their world dissolve. The shimmering palaces, the fiery forges, the sun-drenched islands, let them all soften and drift away. All that remains now is the quiet rhythm of your own breathing, a steady, peaceful presence in the dark. There are no more gods to appease, no more prophecies to decipher. There is only this moment of deep, well-earned rest. Settle into the comfort and the quiet, and let the echoes of these ancient stories guide you into a deep and peaceful sleep.